All right, guys, we got some great, absolutely phenomenal breakout room sessions starting here in about 5 minutes. We're doing all the bullshit that that wind and hail claims are. Bullshit. Can you say it with me? It's bullshit. All of it. Why? We're going to tell you. Everything you know about hail and wind is bullshit. It's all lies. We're going to tell you the truth. I don't care if it's a no-no word. I'm a big boy. I can say those now. You guys are seriously missing out if you're not coming in here. It is done by the one and the only Matthew Mulholland and his bestest friend in the whole wide world, Remington Huggins of Huggins Law. It is awesome. It's going to be awesome. Trust me,
you guys are about to miss out.
Let's do it. Yeah.
We're talking about bullshit in that room right now. You coming for it? You should.
Let's go. Let's go. We're going to tell the truth.
Everything you know about hail and wind is bullshit.
If you guys want to know why insurance companies deny hail claims, I'll see you in room number 4.
All right. All right. You're passing it. Let's go through the curtain. It'll work. Okay. Okay. Okay.
That everything you know about
Okay. You hit me twice. We're talking about bullshit in 2 minutes that insurance companies feed you about hail and wind. It's a perfect seat. I definitely won't pick on whoever's sitting
Let
in
go.
Nice. I only ever wear this one. It makes my wardrobe choices much easier. You guys having a good expo? Is this a decent expo compared to normal? It's definitely better than last year. It feels better. I haven't put my finger on it yet. Being in the same hall and everything, yeah. It makes it more difficult to... Can everybody hear me in the back, though? Well, at least they got the speakers going well. And they have an actual camera set up. It's kind of nice. The last time I did a breakout in something like this, it was at Win the Storm. They had a screen, but the projector wasn't bright enough to show up on the screen. They had microphones with dead batteries. They had a GoPro set up in the back to record us. That's some bullshit. That's right. We have to find bullshit today.
Breakout number 4. We're telling the truth.
They had one.
We're going to expose these folks.
All right, Remington, let's do this. Yeah, get that straggler. Yeah.
Your name?
Yeah.
Danny?
Get him in
Danny,
here.
welcome to the show.
All right.
We got Danny here.
Thank God.
I know.
Danny, we missed you.
Chewing on a donut.
We think it's a donut. Yeah, it could be anything, really. I mean, we don't know.
It's inedible.
All right. Have you guys ever come to the realization that you're being lied to by giant corporations? They would never do that. They spend billions of dollars a year on advertising to make you believe that they are your good neighbor. And they would never lie to you.
Good hands.
My neighbors lied to me a few times, so maybe that's not exactly fair. Yeah. Neighbors do lie to each other, so I take that back. All right, I need to hook up my little clicker, and then we're going to be... My voice keeps going. I sound like a teenager. Every now and then I'm going to squeak, like my balls just dropped.
You actually look like a politician sitting at that stand.
What?
I don't know if I like... I'm going to take a picture real quick.
I look
gotta
like
take
a
picture.
politician?
Yeah, you do.
That is not cool.
I know. No, you got to get behind the stand.
Oh, that's why. I'm just going to look
There you
down
go.
at my screen as I talk. All right. So today we're going to talk about how everything that you've been taught about hail and wind is bullshit. And it's simple. I think you all realize that the trainers that are training us on this are the problem. Because who do we learn all this from? Who do we learn it from? Have you guys ever gotten a certification for identifying damages on roofs? No? I like you all. All right.
I told you he was a politician.
Yeah, maybe. A little bit about myself. My name is Matt Mulholland. I had a roofing company called All Good Roof Systems. I knocked on doors. I fucking hated it. So I started a PA firm called All Good Adjustments, became the largest PA firm in Georgia. We were handling like 3,000 residential hail and wind claims a year. I had a podcast and a YouTube channel called Listen to This Bull. We talk about bullshit in the insurance world on that podcast and YouTube channel. You guys can get a lot of free content on that channel. I opened a school called the National Claims Institute in Florida. It was a brick and mortar school for public adjusters, contractors, and everything. I left that school and started the Building Experts Institute, which is, we have a booth for Building Experts Institute. There's a lot of online go-to-your-own-pace education that's on there. And we just purchased the National Claims Institute, so I own that one again. If you wanted me in your phone, you could scan that QR code. That just allows me to be your My Fave #1 on speed dial automatically.
Politician.
Like a politician. All right. Remington, you want to talk about yourself?
No, I don't.
Do
You
it.
you take it.
Oh, fuck. Remington owns a law firm called Huggins Law. He's really good. You could talk about all the awards that he got, but it's just too many to talk about, so we're not going to talk about that. He's got that face. And I think the jurors just like your face, and that's why you win everything. That's probably what it is.
The roof is damaged, right?
Yeah. Right? Do you wink at him? I bet you wink at him. He's the co-host of the Listen to This Bull live show, the podcast we do every Tuesday. He's in Georgia and Florida, where he is barred.
We're all in the southeast.
Enough about us. All right. So everything that we learn about hail and wind comes from the insurance carriers through the form of forensic engineers. Does anybody know what a forensic engineer is?
Raise
Some
your
of you
hand.
think you do. They're engineers. They did not go to school to become forensic engineers.
What's a forensic engineer?
He's somebody who tries to figure out what happened backwards from the damage that occurred.
Yeah. Yeah, they deal with product defect and things along those lines as well. They were really never supposed to be there for hail and wind losses because that's obvious stuff. But they are supposed to forensically, because they all have some giant CSI-like room that they bring everything back to and they can enhance. And eventually they'll realize that it was hail somehow. It doesn't work that way. But those engineers, especially the ones that are hired solely by insurance companies, are the ones that are trying to teach us what hail and wind damage looks like, what hail and wind damage is. Does anybody see anything wrong with that? They're biased. They get all their work from insurance carriers, and they want to tell us what hail and wind is. And they do these studies, these research papers, these articles that they want to call science, and it isn't. I'm going to show you some of that today, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? And I'm going to be like, right? And that's how this is going to go down. So,
I can tell you this. In this 1 hour segment, he has read literally 6 months straight, if you will, of time to find these little nuggets from these insurance carriers, engineering firms, and he is pulling them out and exposing what they're saying. It's going to save you guys a bunch of time, a bunch of research.
So the first thing we want to talk about, the biggest bullshit is what is damage? Insurance company forensic engineers are defining the words damage, which makes no sense because they have nothing to do with the insurance policy. And the policy and its definitions are what matter. We all know this. This isn't groundbreaking information. You guys could probably cite what functional damage is at night as you go to sleep. Functional damage is this. Every time. We all know it. It's so ingrained. It's all that they look for, but it's a problem because it isn't what the insurance companies actually pay for. I'm going to show you some weird examples of how they're utilizing this against you. But let's establish the baseline. In 1996, Hague decided that functional damage to roofing materials from hail has been defined as the diminution of water shedding capability, that means the reduction, or the reduction in the expected service life of the roofing material. Hey, who can tell me what the expected service life of a 3-tab shingle is? How long? 25 years? Does that sound right? That's a warranty level. That's not the same thing as an expected service life. As it turns out, if you install the same shingle in the Northeast and the same shingle in the Southeast and the same shingle in the Southwest, they're going to have different expected service lives based on the location that they're in. So, how do they decide if something has reduced its expected service life? Does anybody know? They don't. They just say that. But there's no test whatsoever for them to actually prove that. The only thing they've ever done, I'm going to show you one study where they had shingles go for 15 years in Texas. That's the only time they've ever done it, and it was outside in Texas somewhere. Texas is a big-ass state. There are different climate types in Texas. It's a big state.
It's hot.
It's hot in some places. Sometimes it freezes really hard, as it turns out. Hail caused damage to asphalt shingles or roofing is the rupture of the reinforcing mat or displacement of granules sufficient to expose underlying bitumen. Displacement of granules sufficient to expose the asphalt layer. That's what they said in 1996. They changed their opinion. Coming down here, hail damage to asphalt shingles, come on, stick with me, is punctures or ruptures, bruises of the shingles. Granule loss without mat fracture creates no discernible reduction in the service life of a shingle. They changed their mind. Oh, wait a minute. Granule loss used to be hail damage. Now it isn't. I'm getting spammed right now. Hang on. Oh, wait. All right. Why did they change their mind? I'm going to skip ahead to something. Here's why they changed their mind. I'm going to read this a couple times because it's hard to understand. This is from a Hague paper about hail damage to composition shingles. A hailstone capable of dislodging granules and exposing the coating bitumen necessarily fractures the reinforcement of the shingle and generates a detectable bruise. That means if the hailstone is capable of causing granule loss, then there is no way that it doesn't also fracture the reinforcement mat. We know that that's bullshit. Importantly, when a shingle is struck by a hailstone, dislodging granules and exposing the asphalt, while the underlying mat remains intact, the shingle, where is it, necessarily must be defective, or else is nearing or has exceeded its expected service life. They've decided that if granule loss occurs and there's no broken mat, that the only way that that could be true is if the shingle itself is defective or already so old that it's failing.
And
how.
Let me ask everybody this real quick. Raise your hand if you're a contractor. Raise your hand if you're a public adjuster. Okay. Contractors, public adjusters. You can talk about damage as a contractor. When you're meeting that adjuster on the roof or a ladder assist or an IA, you can discuss this type of damage to them. As an attorney, I'm confidently saying that to you. So what I'm trying to say is use these nuggets that he's talking about in the field, because you can. Use this as ammunition, all right?
So this paper has Haig basically stating that if there's granule loss and no mat fracture, even if that was caused by hail, the real cause of loss must be defective materials or wear and tear. And that's why they're saying that. That's bullshit. My voice is gone. That should scare you. You guys have seen some iteration of this image before. I just want to point out the fact that this is what hail damage looks like to a brand new shingle. They designed this based on laboratory tests where they shot brand new shingles. How many of you have seen hail damage in the field to a brand new shingle? Is that the majority of the roofs out there? This doesn't make any sense for an older shingle that has already had most of its oils evaporate out of the asphalt. It becomes brittle like a dry lake bed. It starts ejecting granules. When hail hits a brittle shingle, it doesn't embed granules into the center. It can't. The asphalt is too hard. So instead of being pushed in, it just gets kicked out. And so on an older shingle, this image is stupid and doesn't actually represent hail damage. It's bullshit. Granules themselves, by the way, Remington, you're an attorney. Are the granules on the roof part of the covered property?
100%. It's a covered, I wouldn't say covered peril because that's a loss, but yes, it is part of the dwelling.
It's part of the dwelling. So when my granules get damaged, that's something that should actually matter, right?
Absolutely, and according to Haig in 1996, it is as well.
I could literally claim granule loss as the type of damage.
If a hailstone hits a shingle, granule loss, which would result in the effectivency of the actual shingle itself, where it doesn't do the fire, it doesn't handle hail as much as it was before. Yes, it's a loss.
You said fire.
But let's all be honest. We don't do it because just granule loss, right?
No, well, maybe we should. This is my point. If the hail stole your granules, they're gone. Hail is a thief. You could have a theft claim for hail being the thief. It'd be interesting. Look, granules have a lot of purposes. The functionality of a shingle is in question. Yeah, as a whole, the functionality of shingles is to shed water. We all know that. But granules have a function too. They provide color. We know that because Mrs. Smith will get really fucking pissed off at you if you put the wrong color on her roof. So it has a reason.
So would the HOA.
They would, yeah. It provides UV protection for the asphalt so that it doesn't degrade rapidly. It provides hail resistance. If you have hail damage in the form of granule loss, then next time it hails, it's more susceptible to hail damage than it was before. And here's the real kicker. It also provides fire resistance. The fire rating of the shingles is reduced if there is granule loss. IBHS has some information on that. IBHS is a research facility that's paid for by insurance companies. You'll never, ever, ever see those reports. But you will see some stuff like that in some articles. All right. Haig. Haig says, not in this paper, Haig, who has a Haig certification for roof inspections that teaches the vast majority of us what hail or wind damage is.
Matt, how long is that course?
Oh, it's 72 hours.
72 hours. So a 3
Well,
day?
no, it's actually not. It's 8 hours for 3 days. It's 24 hours.
24-hour course. So I just want to put everybody on notice of that. When they say
Yeah.
they're Haig certified, then they go to 2 years of school to get it.
Right.
I just want everybody to know
And yep, and that's what forensic engineers take. The same 3-day course that you can take and get certified. That's what they take, and that's the only training they have. It's ridiculous. I have a lot of stuff on the Building Experts Institute about dealing with engineers. However, Haig has said in their papers that when hail damages a shingle, it is detectable at that moment visually. That if you cannot tell that the mat was fractured at that moment, then it must not have been. And then they started selling the service of desaturating shingles. They take a shingle, they stick it in this vapor bath of a solvent, and it melts the asphalt off of it. So all you're left behind with is the fiberglass mat, and you can see fractures in it. They started selling that service. So then they wrote this paper where it basically says, oh, actually, sometimes when shingles get damaged, you can't tell right away. You have to desaturate it first in order to see if it's damaged. So because they're selling that service now they're going to say that it might have to be desaturated. Classification of shingles. You guys have heard of class 4 rated shingles? How big a hail can that support? Or get hit by and not have damage caused by hail? Holy shit. 2-inch. Class 4 shingles. It's a UL test, UL 2218, where they take a steel ball and they drop it from 20 feet multiple times. And the steel ball causes a specific type of damage. Very different damage than ice balls, by the way. There is another test, the anti-FM 4473. It's a similar test, only they don't use a steel ball, they use ice balls. Very few of the class 4 rated shingles have passed the FM test. The steel ball test sounds like that would be worse, but these same shingles are being damaged by ice balls in the FM test. And they're not getting class 4 rated. They're not even getting class 3 rated in the FM test. That's really interesting, isn't it? I think I would test with the FM and see where they're at on that one first. Insurance companies will take the idea that you have a class 4 rated shingle and they'll say, well, if it was hit by 2-inch hail and it got damaged, it must be defective because it was rated for 2-inch hail. That's what they're going to say. Defective materials, it's not a covered loss. That's how they'll deny claims. It's a matter of time. They're probably already doing it. I haven't seen it yet. Undoubtedly.
Atlas Chalet.
Yeah. So what do other engineering firms state? Vista, you guys ever deal with them in Vista a few times? When it comes to asphalt composition shingles, the most common residential roofing material across the U.S., exposure to a hailstorm will typically cause a random distribution of roughly circular blemishes across the roof facets. It's funny because when you see one of the reports, it says circular blemishes. That never says hail-caused circular blemishes. It just says circular blemishes. So hail will typically cause roughly circular blemishes across the roof facets with a higher concentration of blemishes on the roof facets directly facing the storm path. That makes sense. These blemishes can sometimes feel softer or bruised when compared to the surrounding surface and will commonly exhibit impressions from the granules being pressed into the mat by the hailstone. On their website, they're basically stating that it doesn't have to be bruised. That's only sometimes. But they're saying what a hailstorm will typically cause. You can use that information to your advantage if you're dealing with that company. If the damage is not detectable with the naked eye, both of which involve hiring a forensic engineer, basically you should send it into the lab for a desaturation. It's too expensive to do that for residential roofing, but if you guys have like an HOA or something, or a large commercial project with asphalt shingles, desaturation tests might be a good option. In 2019, Hague wrote a blog that said casual use of the term damage, either cosmetic or functional, by an expert can have major implications depending on a particular insurance policy. It's not the role of the engineer or roof consultant to interpret an insurance policy or make coverage decisions. Those tests are solely the role of the insurance adjuster. Instead, the expert should clearly state what the hail did and did not do. The next time you have a Hague engineer out there and they say there are circular anomalies, what do they normally say, Hague? Is it anomalies that they use?
They use a lot of
Changes
things.
sometimes.
Wear and tear, faulty installation,
Circular changes.
circular anomalies, you name it.
If they say that, they're saying in their own blog that they should clearly state whether hail did it. They don't. But their blog says that they should. By clearly stating what hail did and did not do to the roof and by avoiding the term damage, the inspector enables the insurance adjuster to perform his or her role of applying the policy. The Hague engineers are expecting insurance adjusters to look at their entire report and go, I wonder if he means damage when he says something else. Is that happening?
Matt, let me ask you a question. When you meet an engineer at a property to inspect a roof, do you ever ask them, like, what is your scope of work? What are you here to determine?
I usually ask them that before they come out, if I can, because there's a lot that needs to be determined on what their scope of work is. Because oftentimes they're asked to identify the cause of loss, and they should be asked to identify all the causes of loss. That way, if wear and tear is a part of it, also hail was. They don't have to name just one. And then we get to say whether or not they're looking for cosmetic damage or not. If I can get the adjuster to tell the engineer to look for cosmetic and functional damage, then I don't have to deal with all this bullshit.
I want to emphasize what Matt said. The causes of loss, not the cause of loss. And I think that's something that these engineers conveniently leave out of their report, is everything that could possibly make the damage. And that's something that Matt said, and I want to really emphasize that. So when you're out in the field, ask them, what could this possibly be? And I want you guys to make him name it out. Hey, I think
You
it's...
could go further.
What's that?
You could go further. You could lean into it. Be like, hey, man, this roof is old as hell. It's got some wear and tear on it, doesn't it? I bet that made the roof more susceptible to hail damage, and that's why smaller hail was able to cause damage to it. What do you think? They still owe for the hail damage, even if there's wear and tear. Hey, man, on a wind claim, I don't think this roof was installed very well. What do you think? Yeah, that made it way more susceptible to wind damage, didn't it? That's why undamaging winds were able to damage it. They were so undamaging, in fact, we don't even have any storm data to back up the fact that it happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm being dead serious. This can change a coverage decision. These simple questions that he's asking right now. I've seen it. So just put it in the dictionary and get it ready to rock and roll when you meet the adjuster on the field or engineer. Of course, that's what we're talking about right now.
I've been doing some talks about wear and tear, improper installation. There is a video on the Listen to This Bull site that has that entire scenario where they're telling you it's wear and tear, improper installation. It's easy to overcome just by leaning into that issue. John Senek, is John in here? He probably has some shit to do. He's been pushing the same thing. You lean into those issues because, generally speaking, it's still a covered loss. All right, so here's the real kicker on all this. They're stopping using the word damage, even though they believe that it's damage. Cosmetic damage is damage, but they stopped using the word damage.
Unless it's mechanical.
Several courts in various states have addressed the issue of what constitutes direct physical damage under insurance policy. In almost all cases thus far, courts have ruled that cosmetic changes in roof material caused by wind or hail are damage under the insurance policy. They admit it. They know what they're doing. They will not teach you about cosmetic damage in their certifications. In fact, they don't teach you anything that could possibly benefit a policyholder. Same blog. I'm going to paraphrase this one because it's too long. Basically, they're saying if they're hired to come out and the adjuster asks them to look for damage and they don't give them a definition of what the policy means, then the engineer has to come up with their own definition. And that's what they do. And so somewhere in their reports, they're going to define what they're going to look for or call damage. And then by defining it, then they're going to say it was or wasn't damaged based on our definition. But they won't say anything about using their own definition in the body or in the conclusions, only in the body. You can do the same thing. When you guys do your own inspections, do you ever write a report? Who writes reports? A legitimate actual, not just photos, but you actually put something in writing? I recommend you start doing this. Define damage on what it is that you think is damage to that shingle. Damage that we were looking for consists of granule loss caused by hail and small circular blemishes. Put that in your report and then show photos of it. If you claim it, they have to investigate it. That's the funny thing about insurance companies. They don't have to investigate anything you don't claim. And that's why they don't. That's why they run past your roof real fast, taking photos 20 feet away of all the gutters. Because you didn't go up and show it to them or
Matt,
give them a report.
I was going to ask one of the individuals that put their hand up, what is their report consist of? But you hit it right on the head. Do exactly what he just said. It is their job. When you show damage, put it in your report talk about the damage, put some substance behind it, they have to investigate that.
They do. All right. It's delayed. Come on. All right. Higgs or Donen. Functional hail damage is what they're talking about. When hail has measurably reduced the functionality of a shingle that was sound prior to the impact. Does anybody know what a sound shingle is? Is it like raps to you a little bit? It's got a little beat to it. That's a sound shingle. Yeah, that'd be cool, right? Someday there's going to be Bluetooth shingles that make music. Somebody's in here making notes. Oh shit, that's a great idea. I don't know what a sound shingle is. Is that a shingle that was working or functioning prior to the loss, or is that a shingle that is brand new?
Let's just use our common sense and say that it was a functional shingle.
Just functional. Then if it was functioning, meaning it was shedding water beforehand, then in order for there to be functional damage, then it can't be sound anymore. So to Donen, there has to be legitimate structural damage that is making it not shed water anymore. That's a problem. And it's a very vague statement. And it's bullshit. So when does functional damage not actually mean functional damage? Suddenly, Hague is different. This will blow your mind. Down here, God damn it, I'm just going to pull with my fingers. Old school, like a freaking caveman. Conversely, hail caused chips in butts or edges of shingles that reveal features which do shed water or expose underlying shingle areas that are covered by protective surfacing, such as granules, do not constitute functional hail-caused damage. So the butt of a shingle is overlaying another shingle. And if that gets broken because there's another shingle under it, it's not functional damage anymore. It might have broken the fiberglass mat. Still not functional damage to them. You ever had a laminate wind damage where the upper laminate tooth, sawtooth came off and they said that's not functional damage? This is why. Because there's another granulated surface shingle underneath it. So it's still shedding water, even though the fiberglass mat was broken. They defined it this way, arbitrarily. That's called extra contractual, isn't it? This isn't in the policy. Nobody paid for that.
I like to say they make up rules along the way. That's what I call that.
They do. They're making it up as they go. That's why they changed their mind on what granule loss was. All right, so what is the actual definition of damage? Policies generally don't define physical damage. Or if they do, they define it as physical loss and physical damage, which does not define it for us. So physical damage, according to the courts across the U.S., is widely agreed to as a distinct, demonstrable physical alteration of a property structure or appearance. I've also seen it said as a demonstrable, detrimental physical alteration of tangible property. Demonstrable means you can demonstrate it. It's measurable in some way. You can actually see that something has changed. A physical change caused by hail or caused by wind is physical damage. This is the definition, not the ones they gave you. If you use this definition in your own paperwork, in your own reports when you send it in, this is the definition we used to define damage since the policy didn't have one. And this is what we discovered, and this is why we think it was caused by hail or wind. Guess what happens?
Matt, how many insurance policies have you read where it actually has a definition of damage?
None. The ones that have physical damage defined usually say physical damage includes physical loss or damage.
Do me a favor. If you read a policy and it has a definition of damage, please email it to Matt.
Yeah,
I want to see it.
So there's definitions for property damage, but that's under the liability section. They don't use that. This is what physical damage is. If the policy doesn't define it, we have to use a definition that's widely accepted like this, or the definition that benefits the policyholder most. This one does all of that. This is a great definition. And you didn't come up with it. It's widely accepted. And so you could use this in your own reports, and you can claim that this is the type of damage that you found. And as long as there isn't an exclusion for cosmetic damage or blemishes or something along those lines, you're going to be just fine. Those exclusions do exist. Outside of those, policy covers this. All right. So sometimes,
Raise your hand if you've seen mechanical damage in a coverage letter or an engineering report.
it says not hail,
Okay.
it's not wind, it's mechanical. Who can tell me what mechanical damage is? Say it real loud.
What's your name? Brandon, what is mechanical damage?
To insurance, anything other than storm related.
A catch-all.
Yeah.
Could be a
Anything
catch-all.
other than a covered peril
Right.
is mechanical
And
damage.
not the trademarked catch-all thing that's here. We're talking about like a term that is a catch-all term. Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody else have a different definition? Because there are more. Oh my God! Who said it?
What's your name? Dave. I wouldn't mess around with
That guy's a
Dave.
ventriloquist.
What's your definition of mechanical damage?
Well, what I've been told is man-made. So, like, if you got siding and there's a crack on it from Junior, chucking lawnmower rocks at it or whatever, they'll write that off as, well, that's mechanical because it was man-made, or somebody hit a baseball against the side of the house or the roof. Well, that's mechanical. Of course, that's man-made.
All of that is covered loss, by the way.
Very true.
All of it. Rocks from a lawnmower,
Golf
sudden
balls.
accidental. No one's putting rocks down and then firing it at their house on purpose.
Hey, don't forget the State Farm commercial. They took it off the air now, but it was about 3 years ago. It was Aaron Rodgers. He was the quarterback, used to be for Green Bay, now the Jets. He was sitting in the living room and was swinging a golf club and let it go, and it went through glass. And they were saying, State Farm was saying, that's a covered
It
loss.
sure is. It's an accident. If it was on purpose, it's called vandalism. And vandalism is covered as long as it's not the policyholder that commits it. All right. So mechanical damage, man-made damage, a catch-all term for anything not storm-related. I've also heard that it is vandalism, so purposeful man-made damage. I went and asked 8 different engineers at an expo what mechanical damage was, and I got 4 different answers. 4 of them asked me what the hell I was talking about. If an engineer ever uses the words mechanical damage, you need them to define that for you. Can you please tell me what you mean by that? I've heard different definitions for this. Here's an actual deposition that Remington Huggins himself took of a Hague engineer, a minority owner. Nope, never mind. We're God.
Hey,
There it is. This is fun. You be the attorney. I'll be the hate guy.
hello, Mr. Engineer. What is mechanical contact?
Mr. Huggins, because I'm an engineer. Likely it had been struck with a tool, or maybe something dropped on it, another object, and it had left a sharp crease in it, maybe scratched the surface finish, something that a hailstone should not do.
Okay, Mr. Engineer. Could mechanical contact be wind-borne debris?
Is that the voice you use when you depose people?
Listen here.
That's
Is it
better.
wind-borne debris?
It could be.
Okay. Could mechanical contact be from hail?
Well, I guess if you wanted to include it with it, in the sense of this report, that's not what the intention was.
No. I'm saying in the sense of your definition of mechanical contact.
Well, it is another object, and it's imparting a force on another object. So, yeah, it could be.
After this definition, within 48 hours, that case got settled. So dig into it a little bit. Peel back the layers. Like you said, man-made damage. Matt said, well, that's actually a covered peril, right? So if it's somebody dropping a hammer, whatever it might be, it is a sudden and accidental or vandalism, if you will, but it is a covered peril. So, peel back the layers of the onion. Yes, sir.
Be a separate claim, though.
Yes, different event than a storm event, but still claimable.
Say, hey, the roof should be covered I'll talk to the homeowner about paying 2 deductibles because that's what they're going to want to do, right?
Hey, for you PAs in the room, is mechanical damage ever excluded in the policy?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm going to ask that next time.
It is not, as it
I
turns
love
out.
that.
You've asked that before. I've had
I
claims
probably
with you
have
about this.
I probably have, but that
Lots
just
of
triggered
them.
something.
Big ones.
I'm
You
going to
should
run with that.
remember this.
I'm running with it.
God, you just survive on your looks, don't you? Jesus. It must be like to be handsome. All right, I'm back up too. This will piss you off. This is from a Donan technical paper. Do you guys know what mat transfer is?
Raise your hand if you know what mat transfer is.
Material transference. If there's mat transfer on a roof, do the adjusters get a little bit weird about it because they think it might be vandalism? Does that happen to you guys? No? You're lucky. It's because they don't think that you would. You must be super nice. Are you super nice? The person next to you doesn't think so.
She was, yeah, her head was like, no.
Yeah, who knows? All right, so this is crazy. Donan, and here's proof, it says photograph 42, majority of the shingle failed to seal as designed. However, the delamination that they're pointing to confirms that it was at one point adhered. They call mat transfer delamination. Got it? All right, over here in this box. Specifically, a minimum requirement to support a position of wind damage surrounds whether or not any delamination, mat transfer, of either both the top or bottom shingle has occurred during a previous separation along the seal strip that bound the two together. If mat transfer has occurred, an argument in favor of wind damage cannot be refuted. If there's mat transfer, then it has to be wind. And they're making you feel like it's proof that it's vandalism. Let's look at the next sentence. If no mat transfer has occurred, an argument in favor of wind damage cannot be supported. It can't be wind if there's no mat transfer. That should really piss you off. It pisses me off. Does it piss you off? It pisses me off.
I told you guys and ladies, he's been reading this stuff for, I said 6 months, literally years, and he's pulling these nuggets out. I mean, that completely contradicts itself.
You could use it to your advantage if they're trying to say, well, there's mat transfer, that's a red flag for vandalism, which it might be. I mean, trying to do repairability tests, I've caused mat transfers. Not purposely trying to damage it, so it's not really vandalism, but people do rip shingles up, and it does cause mat transfer. The fact that there's mat transfer could definitely be a red flag for vandalism. But if you know you didn't do it, and I know you guys get accused of vandalism a lot, and they shouldn't, it's like a scare tactic. But you could use this paper, and you could be like, hey, Donan says that the fact that there's mat transfer makes it irrefutable wind damage. Irrefutable, for you guys that don't know, means they cannot combat that argument. It is undeniably wind.
They can't rule it out.
I mean, it's a really stupid statement, but Donan wrote it, which I guess we shouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised. Bullshit number 2. Damage thresholds. Rules of thumb. What is a rule of thumb? What's a rule of thumb?
Rule of thumb is the general rule that's used generally.
Does it mean that if with that rule of thumb, if it doesn't meet that it's definitely not something, or is it gospel?
Yes.
Gospel. Rule of thumb. You guys ever heard Haig or anybody, any insurance adjuster tell you, well, the hail was less than 1 1/4 inch in size, so it couldn't have caused damage to a laminate shingle? You ever heard that? It was less than 1 inch, so it couldn't have caused damage to a 3-tab. This is a rule of thumb. It's impossible for it to have caused damage to a 3-tab if it's less than 1 inch in size. I'm about to make you guys get real angry because that statement is bullshit. Here's why. Oh, I forgot about this. Hey, this QR code is on that, so I'm going to skip it. But I'll talk to you guys about that in a minute. Do you guys know what this photo is?
What do you think this is a photo of? Who said oysters?
I was gonna
It
say
does
a
look
tree.
like oysters.
Okay. So Matt put this on the screen and was like, Remington, what is this? And I swear the first thing I said was oysters. Was that you, Saul? So,
Yeah, and then
Matt,
he
what
said,
is it?
that looks like my first girlfriend. I think I heard you say that. I don't remember.
No,
This is
I
hail.
did
This
not
is
say
all
that.
cross sections of hail, slivers of it. All of these look a little bit different, don't they? All of these are from the same hailstorm. All of these were found within 1 square of the same hailstorm.
One test square.
That's interesting. The cloudy areas that are real white and opaque has a lot of air bubbles in it, very compressible. The areas that are very clear without a lot of the opaque whiteness are very hard, very dense, not as compressible. We have very compressible hail, you might even call them slush balls, and very solid hailstones from the same storm within 1 square. Not all hail from the same storm is the same. You cannot make generalizations. Well, yeah, it was 2-inch hail, but it was all slushy. That's why it didn't cause much damage. Some of it was.
I mean, look at this. Bottom right
Some of it wasn't.
compared to that guy.
If that one,
Insane.
if that one landed this point down, what size hail hit would it make? Very different size. Size matters, I heard. All right, so a hail damage threshold, according to the engineers, is not really that important. Hail damage thresholds indicates the smallest size of hail which might cause functional hail damage to a particular type of roofing. Might cause functional hail damage. That's a very important thing that they specify. We're talking about functional the way that they define it. Because a number of factors play a role in the causation of damage, a hail damage threshold is not a guarantee that a hail of a certain size did or did not damage a particular roofing assembly. Thresholds are merely rules of thumb that ballpark the opportunity for damage to occur. It is not gospel. Haig wrote that. They're the ones that set the thresholds. It's not gospel. So if they try to say that it was less than 1 inch or less than 1 1/4 inch, and that's why it didn't cause damage, and it couldn't possibly, you could point to this. And you can say, well, that's only for functional damage. And look, down here, it's just a rule of thumb. There's going to be differences. For example, all of this was based on a specific set of shingles that they shot in a laboratory. Here's that study. Here's some information from that study.
Go back to the oysters real quick. I mean, just
oysters.
look how inconsistent every single one of these are compared to each other. And so I hear it all the time as an attorney. Oh, well, it's not consistent with hail. It's not consistent with this or that. I mean, to me, all right, you see a really ugly guy walk into a bar, right? And right behind him is a very attractive woman. It's very inconsistent.
Very inconsistent.
But it can happen, all right? So, I mean, seriously, just because they say it's inconsistent doesn't mean there's no probability of it actually occurring.
Yeah.
So use that, guys. Seriously.
Whoa.
Woo. That thing tried to trip me. I'm good, though.
Yeah.
I was quick.
You're like a cat. Very inconsistent. All right, so here is some bullshit. In laboratory tests, in order for them to determine, what size damage could occur from different size hail, they have to set some parameters. So they did 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, and based on the size of the spherical solid ball of ice, they then said that it's going to fall at terminal velocity. Do you guys know what terminal velocity is?
What'd you say? The fastest an object
This
can
object
fall.
is going to fall, gravity is going to accelerate it until it gets to the point that there's so much friction from the air that it can no longer accelerate and it has reached its maximum speed. It's the fastest that object will fall. Terminal velocity is falling in still air. Hail, you guys know hail is directional, right? Steep pitches, and then hail might hit it.
And ladies
Directly?
and gentlemen, I want to say this. He is nerding out, if you will, on this, but hang with it. I promise. This is good stuff right here. Go for it, Matt.
They're steep pitches, and they hit it at 90 degrees, so they have to be falling at an angle. In order for hail to fall at an angle, what happens? How does that happen? Wind. There has to be wind. It's not falling straight down in still air. The air is moving, and it's moving with it, which adds to its velocity. So terminal velocity is, oh, I hit it already. Is that the next one? Terminal velocity has nothing to do with it. You would add the terminal velocity to the velocity of the wind that makes it fall at an angle, and that would be the resulting speed. We shouldn't be shooting laboratory hail at terminal velocity. It makes no fucking sense. This paper says if we add 40 mile per hour winds, which is normal in a thunderstorm, 40 mile per hour winds on a 1-inch hailstone would add 57% more impact energy. The smaller the hail gets, the more percentage increase it is. They don't want you to know that. They want you to say, oh, terminal velocity, that's really fast. 2 inches falls at 72 miles per hour. Well, 2 inches with 40 mile per hour winds is very different. You would add the terminal velocity, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You guys know this, you're all roofers, Pythagorean theorem. So they did a test. Haig took these shingle boards and they stuck them outside in Texas. And their goal was to shoot it at 0 years, 7 years, 14 years, and 20 years. And then they changed their minds halfway through. And they failed to shoot them at 7 years. So they shot them at 0 years, and then they shot them at 11 years old. And then they stopped the study. Just cut it off. This started in 1983. This is where the rules of thumb came from. So this green designation is a fiberglass 3-tab from 1983. Probably a very different type of 3-tab than what you get today. But that's what this is from. In 1983, they shot that shingle. It says 7 here, it's 0 up there, that's 0 years old. They shot it with 1-inch ice ball and 1 1/3 inch crescent shaped. I don't know what that is. I don't even know how they did it. I got a hail cannon. I still have no idea how they did that. And then they passed their 7-year mark and they shot it at 11-year, 2-month-old. And they shot it with 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch, and 1 1/2 inch. And they're saying that it would take a minimum of 1 inch hail to cause damage to that shingle. What was the smallest size hail that they shot at it? 1 inch. What? How do they know that that's the smallest that could cause damage? Why didn't they shoot it with smaller hail?
This is insane to me. Seriously. Why?
We don't want that data.
Matt, why did they not have a 25-year-old shingle, 20-year-old shingle with 3/4 inch hail and do this report? I mean, it's insane to me.
Somebody's trying to hide some shit. There's 10 data points in this. 10 data points. This is where that rule of thumb came from that is causing people to lose their insurance money. Allowing insurance companies to get away with murder. The red one is fiberglass. All right, so the 3-tab had 6 fractures, functional damage at 1 1/4 inch hail. So they said 1 inch hail was the smallest that could cause damage, even though 0 fractures occurred there. Oddly enough, the same shingle with 1 inch hail caused 2 fractures when it was brand new. That is an anomaly. You could say that's inconsistent. Hail is inconsistent. They shot it 12 times at year 0 and 10 times at 11 years, 2 months with 1 inch hail. They have 22 data points for a shingle that was designed in 1983. If your roof is more than 11 years and 2 months old, this data doesn't apply. If your roof is a different shingle brand than the ones that they used, then this data doesn't apply. If the hail that is falling from the sky is not a perfect sphere, then this data doesn't apply. If the hail that is falling from the sky also is falling in an air column that's moving like every thunderstorm on the planet, then this data doesn't apply. This data never applies. And this is the rule of thumb. This is bullshit. So here's what they came up with for the thresholds of all kinds of roofing materials. If you have larger than this hail size, then they might actually approve it for functional damage. What they'll do, though, is go out of their way to say that the hail was smaller than these numbers. I'm going to show you how they do that next. It's also bullshit, and I'm running out of time.
I want to say this real quick. So this is a whole different deposition I did. It was with a carrier engineer that's been working with one of the largest engineering firms you could think of in the nation. I deposed him. 2 weeks later, Matt met that individual in the field and talked to him about what he was relying on, which is these tests. This is no joke. Within 30 days, he's been working there for over a decade. Within 30 days, he quit. He was gone. Hey, if you can't put your head down at night, you're gone.
He just quit. Did he cry? Did you make him cry?
I think he did. You talked to him after that. He told you why. But
I know
this
who you're
is
talking
real.
about. Yeah. I talked to him before that. I made him cry too. He's just an emotional guy. It's not my fault. All right. They measure the size of hail that fell at your property somehow. They come up with some kind of determination of what size hail fell, even if there's not enough storm data. And they do that by measuring the width of spatter marks sometimes, or the measurement of the width of a dent in metal. Here's how they go about doing that. They use a paper from Crenshaw and Kuntz called Hail Sizing It Up, and a paper from Petty, which had a forensic engineer, how to be a forensic engineer guide. Petty doesn't have any new information. He uses the Crenshaw and Kuntz paper. So really, there's only the Crenshaw and Kuntz paper. That's it. There's no other data on the size of spatter versus the size of hail that causes it. In the Crenshaw and Kuntz paper, they shot a metal panel 6 times. There are 6 data points. They shot it with a solid sphere in a laboratory. They shot it at 90 degrees. And when they shot it at 90 degrees, they shot it at terminal velocity. And they got a little bit smart. When they shot it at 45 degrees, they added however much wind speed would have to have been there in order to make it fall at 45 degrees. So at least they got smart about that. Here's the data. It isn't very clear. The blue is the spatter marks, splash marks. 1 inch hail, shot at 90 degrees, caused a roughly ambiguous number, size, width of spatter.
We'll just say quarter.
0.44. 0.44 inches. A 0.44 inch spatter mark could be caused by a 1 inch hailstone. If I go up to 3 inches, a 3 inch hailstone causes a spatter mark that's larger than the hail. So the spatter is smaller than the hail, and then the spatter is larger than the hail. We know that because we shot it one time at 90 degrees with a 1 inch hailstone, one time at 90 degrees with a 2 inch hailstone, and one time at 90 degrees with a 3 inch hailstone. 3 data points. 3. We are making determinations of people's livelihoods based on 3 data points that hasn't been peer reviewed. Here's the actual data broken down in the Petty hail indentations also. The circular marks around your chalk are not the indentation diameter. That's the overall diameter. They're measuring the inside dent that's inside of your dent. Good luck figuring out where the wall change is. It's impossible. But that's what they're doing. They only fired.
Guys, call them out on this. We talked about it 5-10 minutes ago. Oh, well, this is, there's no way that hailstorm caused this damage. Call them out on it. You guys can discuss damage all day with these adjusters, all day with the engineers. So do that. Take advantage of it. You all right, Matt? No? Okay.
All right, sorry.
Get this man some water. And if you guys get bored, over at the Building Institute booth, we're going to be shooting hail at watermelons. We're going to be shooting them at people, and we're going to be shooting them at
TVs.
metal shingles. So I want you guys, and what we're going to do is put this hail cannon down, shoot a shingle. We're going to move it to the right 1 foot, shoot it again, and I want you guys to see the inconsistencies in the hail impacts. It's crazy, wildly inconsistent.
Wildly inconsistent. One, you can shoot the same size hail, the same speed. It'll have 2 different size impact marks. That's why they only have 3 data points, because they didn't want to show the inconsistency. Here is that information on a spreadsheet. The mechanical units are your 90-degree and your 45-degree impact. I'm going to use the 45-degree impact information because most hail falls at an angle. 1-inch hail causes a spatter mark of 0.44 inches wide. That has a coefficient of 1.3. So the idea is you measure the hail spatter mark, and then you multiply that size by the coefficient, and that should give you the idea of how big the hail was. So if I do that, let's say with half-inch spatter, 2.3. Where am I? I missed. 2.3, not 1.3, over here. Half-inch spatter times 2.3 is from 1.15-inch hail. But here's where they really screw you. You've got 1-inch hail, 2-inch hail, 3-inch hail, and they added these together and created an average coefficient, and they have the engineers use this coefficient as an average instead of breaking it down by size. So if I only use that one, then it comes out with smaller hail in my math. And that's what we want, because we're forensic engineers. We want to show that the hail was too small to cause damage. Because if we could show that it was less than 1 inch or less than 1 1/4 inch, everyone knows from that rule of thumb, from the wonderful research that was done by Hague, that it could not possibly cause damage to the shingles. This is the rub. This is what they're using against you. We don't have, well, here's something interesting. I'll let it play. Bloody hell. I'll let this play as I'm talking about the image. This is from Hurricane Ida. Hurricane Ida, you can see that the wind damage is occurring around that chimney. That's very interesting because they want to tell you that it only starts at the eaves, rakes, and ridges. That's not an eave, rake, or a ridge. That's a chimney. In fact, every roof on that HOA had damage starting at the chimneys. This image here is from a study for wind where they stuck a house facsimile in a wind tunnel and they spun it around and they hit it from every direction. And then they put up the pressure differential all on one image. You can see that in the middle of the field, there is just as much pressure differentials as there are at the eaves, rakes, and ridges. In fact, some of the eaves barely have anything. So when an engineer or an adjuster says, that's mechanical damage because it didn't start at the eaves, rakes, or ridges, you can be like, oh no, motherfucker. Here's a video. Shows it starting at friggin' chimneys in a hurricane. And there's some data that you probably have published somewhere at your office that shows that it could be anywhere.
Matt actually, this is Matt's video. He took him. How many hurricanes have you sat in, Matt?
I've been in 6 hurricanes now. That was Ida. We were in Homa.
What category was this hurricane? Do you know? 3?
I think it was a 3, but it didn't hit us. It actually, we were right there, and it came up, and then it went, and then it kept going. It went right around us.
My favorite part is when I depose engineers and they actually have damage on the outside of the roof system itself, and they say it's mechanical damage. I was like, well, what makes you believe that this is mechanical damage? They're like, oh, well, it's easily accessible by anybody else to get there. This is the part of the roof where there's the most foot traffic. But at the same time, they're saying that these are the areas that get damaged by storm events. So, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
We're not going to get to bullshit number 3. Our time is up. There's somebody else is going to come up and talk. I don't want to steal their time. Hey, guys, we're going to shoot watermelons with the hail cannon right now at my booth way on the other end of this hall.
Gallagher?
If you guys want us to have some Gallagher action with hail, come on down.
Hey, hope you guys
Right
learned
now.
something. Thank you. And ladies.